Good evening, everyone, and welcome to News of the Innersphere. I'm Notice, your UrbanMech anchorman. We here at ComStar Broadcasting Services try to bring you thorough and accurate news, as it becomes available. However, we don't always know what is going on from year to year, as ComStar is always throttling the flow of information, and certain records are often uncovered after the fact. That, and corporations and governments aren't always as forthcoming. So with that said, when we do learn of such incidents that should have gone into past broadcasts, we will offer updates as they become available. Recently, General Motors has disclosed that they were the target of a raid by an unknown unit sporting Capellan Confederation flags and colors on the New Year's Day of the new millennium. At their main BattleTech plant on Kate Hill on January 1st, 3000, GM was working with a bare minimum crew in observance of the festivities. Plant workers Jarvis Clayton and Jin Kwan were in the process of moving one of the last two Marauders off of the assembly line that had been completed in the previous month, making it the first BattleMech to move off of the assembly line in the new millennium. Mr. Clayton was the designated pilot of the Marauder for the day, while Mr. Kwan was designated as the flag truck driver who would lead the mech to GM's storage facility. As the Marauder was being moved from the factory to storage, a Union-class dropship showing House Liao colors began its final approach to the dropship pad at General Motors. At the same time, radio jamming was employed, briefly confusing the two plant workers. In the confusion, a deep cover Liao agent identified only as Hal drove another company vehicle out in an attempt to convince Jarvis to surrender the mech. However, Zen noticed something off about Hal and started shouting at something at him in their native tongue, to which Hal surprisingly responded. Hal then showed his true loyalties when he produced a rifle and tried to take a shot at Jarvis up in the cockpit. Zen's quick thinking saved his younger coworker by ramming the flag truck into the side of Hal's utility truck, throwing off the other man's aim. He then instructed Jarvis to make a run for the storage bunker and to lock himself inside to protect the mechs from being stolen. While the truck road rally went on, which resulted in Zen being shot and injured, the House Liao dropship landed and deployed a lance of light mechs. Normally, a Marauder wouldn't blink twice at such a matchup, but remember that this was just a mere line worker piloting the Marauder instead of a battle-hardened Mechwarrior. A line worker who not only has never seen combat before, but had even been medically disqualified from even joining the military because he had asthma. To top it all off, the Marauder was being moved while in maintenance mode. Its weapons hadn't even been powered up yet. For all intents and purposes, the Marauder was a sitting duck. Knowing that his decision had been reduced to either being branded a traitor for handing over a BattleMech to House Davian's sworn enemy, or being fired for what he was about to do, Jarvis opted for the latter. All personnel at GM who are responsible for transporting mechs to and from the storage areas are given instruction on how to properly power up the weapons and to place the mighty war machines into combat mode just so that they would never be able to accidentally do it. Much like how chemists are taught how to make bombs so that they never mix chemicals the wrong way out of ignorance. And so, Jarvis took the Marauder out of maintenance mode, powered up the lasers and PPCs, and fired. He first shot Hal's truck, who had headed him off and was trying to get him to surrender, and then he fired on the quartet of light Liao mechs, destroying one of the two locusts that were in the lance. To say that the Liao raiders were shocked would be putting it mildly. They stopped dead in their tracks as they considered the sudden loss of one of their locusts from a fully powered heavy BattleMech. Jarvis took advantage of the confusion to get the neuro helmet on so that he could have total control of the mech and to catch his breath as his asthma has flared up from the sudden influx of heat into the cockpit. He was then able to focus and fire another volley on the Liao raiders, this time winging a Wasp. The Wasp and the other two intact Liao mechs decided that the possibility of being captured or killed was not appealing, and so they retreated to their dropship empty-handed. Jarvis let them go as he was more concerned with protecting the Marauder and seeing if his friend and co-worker was still alive. As emergency personnel arrived, accompanied by the local militia, Jarvis ran the Marauder back to the assembly line to power it down there. He got to Zen's side just as the medtechs were loading him into an ambulance. He was injured, but he would survive his wounds. It took General Motors, the Cahill militia, and House Davian a month to sort out what all had happened. House Liao, taking advantage of the coming year-long Millennium celebrations, planned a series of raids to get some lightly defended mechs. Many of the plots had been uncovered prior to the New Year's Day celebrations, and so those operations had been called off. The raid on Cahill was one of the few that had gotten so far as to land troops on the ground. Jarvis and Zen's quick actions exposed the Liao deep cover operative and saved a battalion of mechs from falling into enemy hands. Jarvis went into the meeting with GM's board of directors thinking that he was about to lose his job for violating company policies. Instead, he found out that not only was he going to remain employed, GM was going to sponsor his request for medical treatment in regard to his asthma before being sent to training courtesy of the AFFS. Once his training was completed, he would then return to Cahill to serve in GM's security division with the very Marauder that he had fought in. And so the year 3000 started off quite explosively for a pair of General Motors line workers who went above and beyond their normal duties to protect the company that they worked for. And now, on to the normal yearly report. It is the dawn of a new decade. It is now the year 3010 in the Innersphere, and it makes one wonder, where does the time go? Can you believe that we've gotten through a whole decade of broadcast already? We start things off with the news that the Wolf's Dragoons, despite being offered the most lucrative renewal contract ever by the Federated Sons, declines to stay with their first employer. Instead, they go to work with the Sons' most hated rival, the Capellan Confederation. Before Chancellor Maximilian Liao can have wet dreams about using the Dragoons to punish the Davians for the past 5 years of brutal losses, Jamie Wolf negotiates a stipulation that they will not be used to fight their immediate former employer. This stipulation would be put into all future contracts, as the Dragoons wouldn't really work for the same great house twice until 3048. So to start off their new contract, the Dragoons head into the Confederation space to begin garrison duty along the Liao-Merrick border. In the Capellan Confederation, the Seti Hussars from the Federated Sons attacks and raids the agricultural planet of St. Loris. The second St. Ives Lancers are on the planet to defend. In a pitched battle that saw most of the wheat crops destroyed on the planets, the Lancers inflicted heavy losses on the Hussars, retaining the hold on the world. Despite facing overwhelming odds, driving off the Hussars, and even receiving high praise and decorations from the Chancellor himself, the Lancers felt like that they had been defeated. They would carry the shame of this battle for years to come afterwards. I don't know, must be a Capellan honor thing. Over in the Free Worlds League this year, the 15th Merrick Militia defends the planet of Uhuru against the LCAF and the Snord's Irregulars. While the main units are engaged in fighting, the Irregulars do their things and go relic hunting. Elements of the Irregulars stage an unauthorized nighttime raid on the 15th Supply Depot. Unfortunately, they wound up getting caught in a trap by the Merrick Militia using a new type of jamming equipment. Cranston Snord and Samuel Sneed came to the beleaguered unit's rescue as they managed to get away to give the LCAF invaluable information of the new jammers, as well as make off with some of the much-needed spare parts. The action on Uhuru raises more questions, as Rhonda Snord, the daughter of Cranston Snord, was reportedly part of the unit that went on the raid to begin with. However, Rhonda was born in 2999 and would have been only 11 years old at the time of this engagement. Furthermore, her first official engagement wouldn't occur until the Irregulars raid the planet of Thesida in 3024, when Rhonda would be 25. Now, stepping into the realm of speculation for a moment, when one knows the Snord's true origins, it could be conceivable that little Rhonda stole a damaged Shadowhawk to go on a joyride after stating that she was bored in the Irregulars camp, since, after all, where she comes from, kids can pretty much pilot mechs before they can walk. I could then see this causing a lance of the Irregulars to chase after her to bring her back, thus falling into the trap. That, or a mixed lance of the Irregulars were just as bored and thought that the 11-year-old suggestion was a good one at the time. Who really knows for sure? At any rate, After the Irregulars and the LCAF leaves, the 15th American Militia would then go on the attack, heading into the Lyrian Commonwealth planet of Cor Caroli. In a lightning-fast raid, they secure much-needed engine parts after holding elements of the 18th Lyrian Guards at bay. Inside the Lyrian Commonwealth this year, Archon Katrina Steiner and Duke Arthur Levon welcome little Melissa into the family in February. The family elation would be short-lived, however, as Arthur succumbs to cancer come August. With Duke Levon's passing, his vast fortune is left to the Kell brothers, Morgan and Patrick. They both resign their commissions with the 10th Lyrian Guards to form their own mercenary command, the Kell Hounds. Their first order of business is to hire Mechwarrior Walter de Menency in his Thunderbolt. At first, this could be taken at face value until one learns that he was sent by Quintus Allard, director of the Federated Suns Intelligence Agency, to keep a close eye on the unit. At the same time, many perceive the Hounds as being nothing more than a personal guard for Archon Katrina Steiner and her family. Next, the Kells hire Richard O'Clearan and his jump infantry known as the Crashers. Initially, Morgan and Patrick Kell are mocked by others for being a couple of rich boys playing at being mercenaries. These thoughts are quickly silenced as it becomes apparent that the Kells have a surprisingly advanced grasp of strategy, tactics, logistics, and support, as they then hire some top-notch techs to keep their machines in good working order. They will then set up their base of operations on the small planet of Chara 3, more commonly known as Pacifica, as they wait to get their first contract. Out in the deep periphery on the Davian side of the Inner Sphere, a group of refugees leaving the Outworlds Alliance stumble across an old Star League astronomical observation facility within the Orion Rift. The outpost, called Shady Palms, and no, I'm not making that name up, still had working life support systems in hydroponic bays. The systems were still producing breathable atmosphere and was generating ample quantities of food. The refugees quickly decide to settle aboard the installation. Upon further inspection of the heavily modified Snowden-class mining station, the refugees found that their new home had been deployed by the Star League back in 2749 to conduct advanced research on the Orion Rift itself. They nestled the facility inside of the asteroid belt that was orbiting around a relatively boring yellow-white supergiant star. Scientists called Shady Palms home undertook 5-year tours to both study the rift and to modify the facilities itself. The modifications including the installation of an ore processing station to take advantage of the asteroid belt, putting in a complex central computer, and converting the pressurized bays into hydroponics and recreational centers. In addition, they could use the powerful sensors, telescopes, and equipment to analyze data that was being used to pinpoint planets orbiting stars up to 500 light-years away. The facility was also responsible for providing Star League with significant amounts of information on the dark expanse and other regions of the deep periphery. However, when the Star League collapsed in 2780, the last team of scientists were left stranded at Shady Palms and left to die with no way to return home. Despite the computer core overloading shortly after the last of the science had passed away, the other systems on board the station continued to work as they waited for their new owners to come and set up shop. The Outwards Alliance refugees would build a thriving colony that would last into 3095 and beyond. In the world of literature this year, True Tales and Popular Stories by Father Ryan Ramos is published within the Federated Suns. This book details the history and origins of the mercenary unit known as Everfree. It tells the tale of a former disgraced Curitan officer, Jurg Sturluson, and his former prostitute partner, Katrina Reben. The story starts off with Sturluson serving in a DCMS convict regiment after refusing to take part in the Kataris 4 massacre of 2797, having been one of the few officers to be arrested instead of outright executed. There, he met Reben, who had escaped from a DCMS brothel on New Sarmacan and had been recaptured. She was thrown into the convict regiment after refusing to go back as she wanted to escape that life. As the DCMS was none too gentle with the men and women within the convict regiment, Sturluson and Reben sought solace with each other and eventually fell in love. On one of Jijiro Kirita's infamous chain gang missions onto the Davian planet of Ubidi in 2825, the two became separated in battle when their unit was scattered. Instead of falling back to the rendezvous point, Sturgelson rushed to find Reben, finding her Stinger cornered by a Davian Marauder. Instead of engaging in a fight that the Marauder would have easily won against his already damaged mech, Sturgelson threw himself into the line of fire, shielding Reben's lighter mech with his own. The two were then captured by the Davians, and their story was told to the presses. The resulting media attention at the time brought their history to light along with the dismal conditions within the Draconis Combine. Moved by the pair's plight and their story of true love, this led First Prince Paul Davian to grant the pair citizenship within the Federated Sons. They would both then serve within the AFFS together before forming their own unit, the Everfree. The unit's symbol, an unbroken chain, became an element within the popular story of House Davian, which then led to Father Ramos writing and publicizing about it this year. The Everfree, by last accounts, were stationed along the Davian-Curitan border planet of Sauk City for garrison duty, and it is assumed that the unit continues to operate to this day. And now for the technology report. The Wolf's Dragoons are at it again by introducing their trademark sub-variant of the Archer, the ARC-2W, that carries just a ton of ammo for the pair of SRM-4s and removing the two rear-firing medium lasers along with 3 tons of armor. Jamie Wolf's personal machine, that would later become known as the 5W variant, came complete with an XL engine, double heat sinks, NARC missile beacons, case protection, and a lot of plot armor. Blackwell Heavy Industries has started construction on a new 100-ton assault battle mech this year. Why? Because the officers of the Wolf's Dragoons have met with their executives and say, hey, we really like the Marauder. Can you make it bigger and stompier? Blackwell executives just smiled, took their cash and schematics, and said, hold my beer. Meanwhile, General Motors executives spit out their drinks and go, what the fuck? But instead of outright suing Blackwell for copyright infringement, they decided to sit back, bide their time, and wait to see how things panned out. In the Outworlds Alliance, the newly rebuilt Mountain Wolf BattleMech Corporation produces the first completely brand new design in a century, the Merlin. It's a 60-ton mech that boasts an impressive array of weapons for the time, including a Magnar Hellstar PPC, a pair of Martel Model 5 medium lasers, and a Holley LRM-5 launcher, making it pretty comparable to existing heavy mech models, including the Griffin. Then, just to make sure that infantry dies too, it has a Zippo flamer and a Sperry Browning machine gun. With a Pit Band 240 engine and 4 Pit Band LFT-50 series jump jets, it guarantees that it will be moving around the battlefield with ease. If that wasn't enough, it carries 10.5 tons of armor and 18 heat sinks. Mountain Wolf Battle Mechs made sure that all components were reliable and readily available on the existing market, making it durable and easy to repair, which quickly endears it to many mercenary units. Finally, in sports, James O'Gordon defends his title of Grand Champion in his Specialized Battlemaster, making it 2 in a row wins for him. And that's the way it is in the Inner Sphere this year. It's hard to believe that we've already gone over a whole decade already. Join us next time when we cover new mercenary commands, nobles being promoted, the Dragoons being handed their first solid loss, and more antics from Krantz and Snord. Thank you, and good night.
We here at ComStar would like to remind you, peasants of the Inner Sphere, that we are here for you, and that we care for your well-being. All of that lost tech that we keep on Terra, that is all for your benefit, of course. By taking all of the lost technology from you and having you live in the Dark Ages, we are ensuring that you will live on by not having to fight each other over it. Take this jump ship, for example. You do not need it. It is, for all verifiable, practical, and legal purposes, most definitely not a warship. The Outbound Light is an exploration vessel that will bring the teachings of ComStar to the darkest regions of space. It totally is not going out beyond the borders of the great houses to look for the Star League Defense Force. I mean, that would be crazy. If we were to find the SLDF out in deep space, we would bring them into the grace and fold of our blessed Blake's wisdom. I mean, what could go wrong? You see, we at ComStar have nothing but your best interests at heart. Thank you for taking the time to view our propaganda. This broadcast is casting news of the inner sphere 2200 sea bills. Thank you, and may the peace of Blake be upon you.
My name is Presenter Humorous. My position is within the financial affairs of ComStar, and located within an area of space of the Free Worlds League. My position and responsibilities are to make sure that all the books are upkept, and that everything is above board, and that there is not a single sea-bill that is misplaced. We keep a keen eye on numbers, you see. It is very important. Everything is calculable. Everything is, well documented, and it is my responsibility to maintain those things, to keep a wary eye on those things. As an example, there has been a recent uptick in communications between the Free Worlds League and the Lyran Commonwealth. You see, the Lyran Commonwealth had just started celebrating the birth of a new Steiner. A new addition to their family. Melissa Steiner, I believe, is the babe's name. And there's been a lot of well wishes, as well as many of the, typical threats and so forth, but it has gone up, which means that since there's more use, there's now more revenue, which must be accounted for, and it is a daunting task, to say the least, but one that we are most capable of handling, yes. And as such, the sea bill has grown stronger, which is very, very good for all of us, since we have a stable means of monetary trades and such. It's all very important, I assure you. And with the strengthening of the sea bill comes a stronger sense of reunifying humanity under a singular banner once again, but this time under perhaps more sound leadership than the previous attempts, which had sadly only left many to be discarded and only led to more destruction of humanity, which is not ComStar's goal overall. No. It is to uplift humanity, to help humanity, and to be a guiding hand for humanity, as Blake had attempted to do in his time, blessed be upon him. I must apologize. The duty does call, and I must answer. Hello. Presenter Humans here. Uh-huh. Well, have they paid their dues yet? They have not. That's unfortunate, most unfortunate indeed. Okay, well, what assets do we have in the area? Oh, Kappa, there, okay, Gamma, and Delta. Go ahead and call upon Delta. I know how they operate is rather, unorthodox, but it would leave many to believe that it was another source that had committed such things. We were not going to worry about the cleanup after this one. No. Deploy them as soon as they are able. Okay. Yes. Blake's blessing upon you as well. Good day. Wait. Ah, yes. The reunification of humanity under more solid leadership oh dear. I must apologize. It would appear that I am being called upon again. I believe this is where we're going to have to end this. We will have to reschedule another time when I can have someone else fill for me if we're to do another interview. Again, I do apologize. But remember, we may not be the best solution to your interstellar communication needs, but we are your only solution, and we appreciate your continued patronage. So, thank you for your time, and we'll talk again another. Good day.